I'm Marilia, and I want to welcome you to El Salto del Gato's Gumshoe playlist series. This is where I explore the use of astrology as a forensic tool. I cast an event chart, dissect it, and attempt to find a killer. Can the stars be used as a forensic tool, or do they have no value in criminal investigations? I'll leave it up to you to judge that for yourself. In the meanwhile, let's go there. This is a story about a brutal, horrific murder, actually, four murders, in order to accurately convey the violent, brutal, rage driven force unleashed upon the four unsuspecting victims. I can't avoid mentioning the type of attack and emphasize the force of the attack. But first, it's helpful to visualize the scene surrounding the events leading up to the attacks. This crime did not happen as the students were walking down the street in the middle of the night, cloaked in darkness, being loud and frivolous. There is no evidence that there was a fight or any kind of altercation, no road rage, nothing, no exchange that could have led to this crime. As best as we know, it was an ordinary night in the life of four college students. They were amongst friends in familiar surroundings, and afterwards retired to the safety, comfort, and privacy of their bedrooms for a peaceful night's rest. But what followed them needs to be considered in detail. We don't know why, and we don't know who, but we do know how, where, and what happened next. The thing that happened was beyond a nightmare, beyond one's worst nightmare, and it reoccurred four times. It occurred to four innocent humans in the prime of their life. They were just starting off on the trajectory of life, barely adults. These aspiring young people were filled with hopes and dreams and future plans. It's the time of life where it's all about exploring love, relationships, friendships, finding your tribe, and all of the things that humans explore as they transition into adulthood. Yes, that includes drinking, partying, flirting, and sometimes drinking too much, perhaps misbehaving a bit. I mean, there comes a time where we just say, the hell with social decorum. Let's be free of all that just for a little while. Let's just have fun. Indiscretions happen, perhaps a little promiscuity too. God, who hasn't experienced those things? It's all in a night's fun. Tomorrow we'll get back to the business of working on our dreams. But for these four young people, there would be no tomorrow, and their dreams would not come true. The world wants to know why. How are they any different than anybody else, or than any one of us at their age? If one of us had been in their shoes, can we even imagine what that would look like? What would that feel like? It's hard to even try to imagine the fear, the panic, the pain, the shock, and finally, the awareness that this was how it was going to end. It is something no one wants to talk about. It's the great big white elephant in the room. What did they experience as they went down to their death? It's difficult to discuss because no one wants to add more horrific pain to the lives of the people who love them, their parents, their siblings, their extended families. These lives are also shattered forever. They're left in an endless season of mourning, asking the same questions the world is asking. Why and who? But see, the difference is the world can compartmentalize this. It happened to someone else's family. But these families do not have that option. No one but the morbidly curious wants to look at the aftermath of this horror on the bodies because once you hear it, once you see it, once you know it, you can't undo it. Yet it is important to keep in mind that some members of each of these families had that task fall in their laps. And some parents need to know. In some way, knowing the graphic details is important for them. Perhaps knowing is better than not knowing, no matter how horrific the event may be. In a sense, it is important to understand the extent of the act the perpetrator inflicted on each one of these people, just in case, somewhere down the road, a jury of its peers needs to hear it. Yes, I refer to this thing on two legs as an it, because I can't seem to find a word vile enough to describe it. We can call it a monstrous criminal, a murderer, a demon, a devil, evil personified, an evil ghost. There's so many descriptors, and they are all befitting the perp. But beyond all of that, what scares us the most is that it is a human. I have no idea what it was like for the 4 people that deadly night. This attack was personal to each victim, regardless of whether the perpetrator selected them intentionally or randomly. The moment the attack was unleashed on them, it became intimate and personal to them. In my opinion, it does no justice to the victims to whitewash the extent of the injuries they received at the hands of some evil ghost masquerading as a human. Who could do this? I'm freaking out just writing about it. This mysterious, anomalous incarnation into flesh may be someone's child, someone's sibling, perhaps someone's spouse, or possibly someone's parent. An everyday human walking amongst us, interacting within a community in their ordinary role, an unassuming character, overlooked by others and unremarkable, a citizen never thought of as a threat. Maybe a neighbor, the postman, delivery person, a waiter, a bartender, a teacher, a cop, a stranger, a foreboding character. Could this be someone perceived as vulnerable, often bullied and easily humiliated, who shape-shifted into a murderer amongst us? Someone equipped with a knife to hunt prey and the knowledge of how to use it? Or something far more evil, far more dangerous? Could it be that helpful person, well-known, respected, and trusted, the last person to ever be a suspect, an evil ghost, wrapped itself in flesh and lived amongst us? Yes, we know the what, we know the where, we don't know why, and we don't know who. And so we're going there. It was a freezing cold night. The weather would drop progressively in the wee hours of the morning from the 30s into the 20s, and it was foggy. The kind of night you avoid driving in because of the low visibility. It's hard to see where you're driving or who might be lurking about outside. But not if you're a young college student. There's too much living to do, too much partying to be kept indoors by a little freezing weather. Oh no, it was a perfect night to go out. Have a couple of beers or a couple of shots, maybe a little wine chaser, and warm up. It was a good night to fellowship with friends before the upcoming holiday break. Kids will be returning home to celebrate with family. It was also a football weekend and a home game for the university earlier that day. Along with the usual tailgating parties, there was also a lumberjack competition and a big veteran celebration event taking place in this very small college town. These activities brought in an influx of people into town. I'm sure the local police force was busy with crowd control, monitoring traffic, as well as addressing the normal university student shenanigans. It was that time of year right before students began to leave town on the Thanksgiving holiday breaks, and shortly after that they would be going on their winter break for the Christmas season. Most students would not be returning until after the new year, and many of them were graduating in December. So this was pretty much one of their last party till you drop university weekends. The stuff of memories for later years. They can talk to their grandchildren about it. But not these 4 students. There would be no tomorrow and no later years. Now, it gets dark fairly early in this part of the country during the winter, and this night was no different. In the wee hours of the morning, it's pitch black outside. Add a layer of fog and freezing weather, and it's perfect scenario to wear a ski mask, heavy jackets, and thick gloves to bundle up. Hoodie-covered heads were everywhere that night. It was hard to distinguish one person from the other, an ideal setting that favored someone with malice on their mind. The date was 11/12/22. The occupants of the house located at 1122 King Street were at downtown bars and eateries or attending fraternity celebrations and festivities, doing what 19, 20, and 21-year-old university students do on the weekends, partying. They were out clubbing, drinking, mingling, and bantering with each other, generally having a good old time. But the group was not driving their own vehicles. They were using the available rideshare services. There were 5 girls listed on the lease at this property. Not all of them had lived there long term. At least one of them had recently moved into the property within just the last 5 or 6 months, and one of them was graduating the following month of December. She even accepted an internship in Texas that was going to last until August, after which she had a gap period planned, and she was going to go off and backpack through Europe. She purchased a car and wasn't even supposed to be there this weekend. She just came in to show her friends her new car, a car she wasn't even driving that night. This was her first adult purchase. Allegedly, the 5 girls went off in pairs to attend different events around town, or at least it appears that they did. There are uncounted hours prior to 10 p.m. on this particular Saturday for the group, and there are periods of unknown activity for a couple of the students during the evening. But it does not appear that anyone stayed home, and no one returned home before 1 a.m. Sunday morning, November 13th, 2022. Now, according to all authenticated information from the police department, the group was back home by 2 a.m. In fact, one girl brought her boyfriend with her, who spent the night, so there were 6 people in the house and a dog. The dog belonged to one of the girls, the one that was graduating. It was just another ordinary university weekend for the kids. Nothing different, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing appeared to be raising anybody's alarms. All the information authenticated by the police department and released for public consumption states that by 2:50 a.m., all the students were in their bedrooms, either getting cozy, bantering with each other, or passed out from the evening shenanigans. Somewhere between 4:06 a.m. and 4:20 a.m., the wheel of fortune was spun, and a tragic, unexpected event arrived at their door. A great shift of destiny interrupted their futures. It should have been a usual night of staying up late, then falling asleep when the sun creeped up. But the sun would never rise again for them. You see, it wasn't the sun that creeped in. It was evil that seeped into their rooms, engulfing them and unleashing an angry rage of violent brutality on them. There was a food delivery at 4 a.m., and there were telephone pingings that indicated at least one of the victims was on her phone at 4:12 a.m. At about 4:17 a.m., a neighbor's security camera recorded the sounds of distant bumps and possibly screams in the night, but discounted it as usual party house rumbles. At about 4:20 a.m., a white vehicle was caught speeding away on yet another camera. All phones go silent after 4:12 a.m. Each thrust so powerful it rendered each student defenseless and unable to call for help. With the precision of a skilled hunter, the perpetrator or perpetrators quickly pierced the bodies in precise anatomical locations to cause the most lethal injuries, as if he were immobilizing and bringing down wild game. With a large, sharp instrument and ice-cold focus devoid of any semblance of human emotion, he slashed them repeatedly. In a wild, chaotic, frenzied act, this crazed psychopath quenched his perverted craving to shed innocent blood. And shed blood he did. The crime scene was likened to a bloodbath. The brutal ability required to use a knife and repeatedly cut through flesh, muscle, and hip bone on 4 people and subdue anyone who attempted to fight back must be noted when considering who might have done this. It is rumored that there is evidence of large gaping wounds around their chest and torsos. A family member interviewed on television reported that their child's autopsy showed their lungs and liver were sliced through. And when asked in an interview, the coroner stated she would not call these puncture wounds, as they were large, cutting, gouging wounds. This must have left the victims gasping to breathe and riveted by pain, laying there where they fell as rivers of their commingled blood pooled around them, dripping onto the floor and running along the baseboards, trickling down to the outside foundation stones of the house located at 1122 Keene Road in Moscow, Idaho. They were left helplessly convulsing from the shock of the blood loss, watching their lives pass out of their bodies. I pray that the brain, perhaps aware of its impending death in a final act of life, generates some calming, anesthetizing, and self-soothing effect to the consciousness of the body it is embedded in, and that is going haywire as it dies. In the span of no more than 10 to 15 minutes, just as quickly as a destructive bomb cyclone exploded on them, it moved away and left the house, leaving an aftermath of blood and gore and the mutilated bodies of 4 young students displayed in the aftermath of this horror to intentionally further traumatize not only their families and friends, but also the first responders to arrive on scene. 4 shattered lives lay in their deaths, broken dreams, stolen plans, all their hopes lost. 4 stories tragically ended in the space of 10 or 15 minutes. It took approximately 4.5 minutes for him to end the life of each victim. Miraculously, 2 roommates survived this carnage, which has opened a Pandora's box of speculation in the public. I'm not going to go there in this narrative because who knows what a 20-year-old was thinking or what was going on in the house, especially if they too were partying and were heavily intoxicated. And in all honesty, the house had the reputation of being a party house, and rumors abound about designer drugs and drug use in general. It was a known place where you can go to get high. All of that is out there, but who cares? None of that justifies what happened, and none of that falls on the shoulders of anyone who survived that aftermath. Whatever knowledge, if any, the survivors have, I'm sure they will cooperate with law enforcement. The important thing to know is that they are the survivors. However, it was that they managed to survive. They survived it. They are the survivors and should not be condemned, judged, or punished for that. And who would do such a thing in the wee hours of the morning on Sunday, November 13th of 2022 at 1122 Keene Road in Moscow, Idaho? Those are all the facts that I know about that night. Now, we do know that there is a suspect in custody, and I have dissected him in another video where I explore the event chart of this location. And boy, does that take you on a deep, dark, psychological journey. But we will have to put on psychological hazmat suits to go through the contaminated psychology of the suspect. If he's not guilty, there sure are a lot of things that make him look guilty as hell. The question is, could he have really done this by himself? Could this have really occurred with just one person doing all of this? There is another set of mushrooming conspiracy theories out there about other people being involved, and specifically someone who a SWAT team took down in another event, and all of that is out there. But that's all speculation. Again, I thank you so very much for indulging me. I'm probably one of the more senior YouTube sleuthers out here. I'm a 70-year-old woman, and yes, this puzzle intrigues me. I wonder, are some people just born evil? Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I hope you return.